everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on climate change. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Donald. Mr. Donald, what you want to discuss about climate change? If you have any new technology, new innovation, you can share with our audience. Thank you for joining today.
Well, right now, the global levels of greenhouse gases are so high that there's going to be continual destruction for we don't know how long, but the greenhouse gases take hundreds or even thousands of years to go away. So that's not something that is something that we can turn around now. It's too late. And so what we're finding is that the Thwaites, I think it's pronounced, glacier in Antarctica is not able to hold back the ice anymore. And Greenland is melting a lot faster than we thought it was. And this year is the hottest year in hundreds of thousands of years. It's and there's no mechanism for it to go backwards. We can't turn it around. We're just making it worse at an incredibly fast rate. And so the thing about climate change, the only technology that could theoretically reverse things is carbon, if we could take the greenhouse gases out of the air. But the way that they got there is releasing energy. And that energy is used for all kinds of different things, making electricity and driving cars and just anything. Our whole society has grown dependent on fossil fuels. And because of that, in order to basically put the genie back in the bottle requires energy. So we need to use the energy that it released and take that energy, and then to turn it around, it requires a similar amount of energy. And so the ability for us to take the greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere is it's just nothing. They're just opening a new carbon sequestration place in Texas. And I have a feeling I haven't looked into the details of it, but I have a feeling it's just a way that they can do carbon offsets so that they can sell more gasoline. The biggest one in the world right now is in Iceland, and they use geothermal to power it because that doesn't put any greenhouse gases back in the air. And in 1 year, it sequesters as much carbon as we make in 1 second. So the degree of the problem is just almost beyond comprehension. And it's pretty easy to see now that we're having catastrophic weather events. There's the speed of hurricanes. I mean, what happens is that they take a storm, you get a storm, and you say, what's the statistical probability of a storm like this happening? How often it's going to be at a random time, but basically on average, how often does a storm like this occur? And so we have storms that are, 5-year storms that, on average, every 5 years, you're going to have a storm this big, and 100-year storms and 500-year storms and 1,000-year storms. And now we're having 1,000-year storms every couple of years. And so in some places, like they just had one of the biggest hurricanes to ever hit the United States hit Acapulco, which is very rare for hurricanes to be on the Pacific coast of Mexico. And so that was just, totally unexpected. It just kind of popped up. Nobody expected it. and basically flattened the city of Acapulco in Mexico. So we're in the beginnings of a global catastrophe that's almost beyond comprehension. What can we do? As far as technology, the main thing is we have to stop using fossil fuels. Okay, we have to stop, and we have, because they're what are putting the greenhouse gases in the air, and and what we could do at best is we could kind of stabilize things at the level we're at now and not make it even worse. Because the hotter it gets, the faster the Antarctic ice is going to melt, the faster Greenland's going to melt, and those will raise the if they both melted, which they won't completely melt, but still they would raise the sea level hundreds of feet, not just a little bit, but all of the coastal cities would be underwater, all the islands, much of Bangladesh would just be completely underwater. And so that at this point in time, we don't see any way of making that stop. That's going to happen, not in your lifetime or mine, but in 100 or a couple 100 years at most. And it's been surprising how much faster it's happening than we thought. So the predictions of the timescales 20 years ago we're seeing stuff that we didn't expect to see for 50 or 100 years. So things are going at an incredible rapid speed. And in California, where I live, there's been a big commitment to not using fossil fuels, and we get the majority of our energy for electricity from renewable sources. And electric car purchases are now 25% or more of the electric cars that people are buying. So there's, in California, we're actually doing the work to make the shift to clean energy. But in the world, oil is so valuable. There's so much money that's made on oil that the people who have, as you know, people who have lots of money have lots of power. And the people who are pulling the oil out of the ground and refining it and selling it to us and things like that are basically the richest people in the world. And so all of us who say, oh, you need to stop doing this, they have basically unlimited resources to buy politicians, to create media campaigns, to obfuscate what's going on and pretend it isn't happening. And so the ability of society to slow and stop that is not that strong. I just saw a study that was done of global literacy, and in the United States, 14% of people are illiterate, and about 45% can't read beyond 6th grade level. So when you look at something like climate change and greenhouse gases and how the global warming works and things like that, it's very, very easy to manipulate people who get all of their information by watching television. They find a favorite television channel and that's what they believe. They don't have a way of cross-referencing things because they can't read. I mean, I read something that's surprising or unbelievable, and I don't believe it. And so what I do is, after not believing it, I'll go around and I'll check many places and see if all the different places are saying the same thing. And if that's the case, then I'm more likely to believe it. Or I say, well, okay, I'll start believing this because these independent people are all saying the same thing. So it's most likely that it's true. But if you get all of your information by watching one television channel in the United States, it's called Fox News, and it basically doesn't have any, it's untethered from reality. They just say whatever they want. They just make things up. And but they do have an agenda, and part of the agenda is to make sure that people don't want to change to renewable sources and cut down the amount of CO2. Now you might ask, why would this be? Besides just the money, why would people have a tendency to, and even the people with the money, I mean, if you have lots of money, that doesn't mean you're an evil person who wants to destroy the world. I mean, you know, there's very great people who spend their money in very, very great ways that really help the world. So what is it? And the answer is that the United States especially, but England, there's a number of people in England like this, and they're definitely in the Western world, and the United States more than any place, are extremely religious, and it's a kind of Christianity. I mean, there's all kinds of Christianity, but they have a kind of Christianity where they believe that Jesus is going to come back in the immediate future and whisk all the people who believe in him to heaven, and then leave the rest of us here and have where we'll just have a miserable time and fight with each other, and you know, everything will be terrible. So they don't believe that the world is going to exist in 100 years. They think that Jesus is going to come back to earth and basically, you know, take them all to heaven, and then the rest of us are just going to fight, and everything's going to come to an end. So they sincerely believe that they don't need to worry about greenhouse gases or anything for the future, because they believe there's no future, that their religion tells them that there's not going to be any future anyway, so they're not worried about it. And it's pretty scary thing. What I just said is pretty pessimistic sounding. I'm basically saying that we're, to put it bluntly, screwed. And I myself, I'm old enough that it's not going to affect me a super lot. You know, I probably won't be around in 25 or 30 years, but I feel personally like every one of us works together, and we've done it ever since human beings have been around. Like every parent wants their kid to be better off than they are, and they work towards that. And everybody's been doing this for the whole time the human race has existed. And I think more about like what we're leaving to the people that are coming after us. You know, we were the first people who've turned around and made everything so much worse that it's almost hard to imagine. I mean, how responsible is that? I see myself as, you know, part of the human race, and I feel it's my obligation to leave the world a better place if possible than than when I got here. And I think so. So the question gets to be, if we're in a position or that the climate change is going to be inevitable, and that we're going to start seeing sea levels are already rising, and they're rising in an accelerating rate, and there's a very good, it's almost no question that rate is going to keep accelerating. I read today that, or I just heard it the last couple of days, that a lot of people are leaving Florida because they can't afford the insurance, because the hurricanes and flooding and things like that are so dramatic in Florida, in the United States, that the people can't afford insurance anymore for their homes. So they're just having to leave. And there's no way that's going to turn around. I mean, if the storms are getting worse, more houses are going to get destroyed, the insurance companies are going to have to pay out more money, and so they're going to have to calculate the risk and charge people insurance rates that are based on the risk that the insurers have of something going wrong and them having to pay out. So basically, if you take that thing as just kind of a little microcosm of what's going on in the world, all over the place, the risk is going up dramatically. And because of that, there's more insurance is going to go up. Insurance companies are even are getting strained. Governments run into, governments kind of step in and take up the slack when that happens, but they have a limit too about how much that they can spend to mitigate and repair damage by climate change. So if we are looking towards leaving a better future for our children and grandchildren and so on like that, well, we have to think about things based on the fact that climate change, that there's going to be a lot more extreme weather events, and the sea levels are going to rise, and the temperatures are going to get hotter and hotter. As I said, this is the hottest year in, I think, 120,000 years, was what I read today. And that's pretty dramatic. And next year, there's no reason why next year won't be even hotter. And I want to there's a book that came out recently. It's kind of popular. It's called, what is it? The Ministry of the Future. Ministry of the Future. And the book starts out with a heat wave in India. And what happens is that when as the humidity gets higher, the heat affects you more. And they have what's called wet bulb temperature, which is the idea of you measure the temperature, but you do it with something that's wet. And so the idea is if it's wet and it's dry, then there's evaporation, and the evaporation cools things down. And so you as a person, when you get hot, you sweat, and the sweat evaporates, and that fact that it evaporates cools you down. So that's just a physical mechanism that we have for cooling down. But if it's very, very humid, the sweat doesn't evaporate. So you're basically getting boiled alive. And in the story, I think it was 20 million people die from a heat wave. And the fact of the matter is that that's not unrealistic. That's something we're going to start seeing happening, because the wet bulb temperatures now along the Gulf Coast of the United States, which has air conditioning, but power failures happen, and I've gotten so high that they're dangerous. If you're outside, it can kill you. It can kill you quickly too. It's not something that you want to mess with. And if there's maps that you can see that show where the wet bulb temperatures are getting completely out of control, and there's places in India, Iran, the Gulf Coast of parts of the United States, South America, all over the world. There's places that are going to be in not too long, less and less habitable. I mean, if there's air conditioning, you can, survive, but that's requires a lot of energy, and it's still dangerous because the power can go out, and so we're gonna people are gonna have to leave and go someplace else, just like people are starting to leave Florida to go someplace else, and as the sea level rises, coastal cities and low-lying areas in the world are going to start getting flooded more and more often until, and not too far in the future, they're just underwater. And Florida is one of the places that's going to be. So what that boils down to is that people are going to have to leave and move somewhere else or die. And so what we're facing now is, I think that migrations, climate migrants and climate are one of the biggest issues that we're facing right now in the world. And we do know enough that we can start looking at where the sea levels are going to be rising the most, and start figuring where it's going to be hottest. Like I'm kind of worried where I live. So many people are going to want to come here because we have kind of a natural air conditioner from the ocean where fog comes in whenever it gets hot. And so you look at the maps of the world, we're one of the places that, at least for temperature, we're very safe here, or, more safe, I should say. And so it's a question. I don't really have an answer to it. I mean, how are we going to deal with billions of climate migrants, billions of people who need a new place to live? The economic devastation of someplace like New York is, I think, 1 or 2% of the GDP of the whole United States, or maybe not that much, but around 1%. It's hugely important in the United States, and it's going to go under. It's going to be, much of it is going to be uninhabitable in not too long. I mean, there was a storm, Hurricane Sandy, actually flooded the subway system in part of New York. People you couldn't use it, and you absolutely depend on the public transportation in New York, because it's too many people for everybody to have cars, or even many people to have cars. And so where is that economic engine going to go? And how is that economic engine going to keep providing basically money so people can live? How is that going to, what are we going to do about that? And again, that's just a microcosm, because I know Bangladesh especially is very, very low lying, and it's terrifying. But coastal cities all over the world, Tokyo, London, I mean, most major cities in the world are on the coast, because they evolved as transportation hubs, and they evolved in places where ships could come and go. So basically, the places where we generate the money are very, very much at risk. And so, of course, we need the money to be able to work and solve the problems, but there's no clear plan for how to do this. So I think what I can really say is that being aware of what the problems are is a first step to trying to get together to be able to try and mitigate them. We're not going to be able to reverse global warming. and climate change, but what we can anticipate what's going to happen and start working as soon as we can to be able to work out what we're going to do when the things that will happen start, well, they're already starting to happen, that will happen, because otherwise there's going to be wars, there's going to be mass casualty events. I mean, lots of people dying, lots, like billions, and it's a pretty grim future we have right now, and I don't know. I'd be interested to see ideas and solutions to it. I mean, we have this wonderful guy on the show a lot, Dr. Talib, and he's he's worked for the UN and high levels in the UN, and he says that the only way we can do it is to basically be a global world. We can't have countries. Or if we do, they have to be less important. And we've got to figure out ways of like working together globally to solve these problems, because sometimes whole countries will pretty much everybody's going to have to leave. And I mean, there's already a South Sea Island that was a country, and they've evacuated everybody. And so it's happening right now. The war in Syria is mostly caused by climate disaster, a drought that happened, and so it's happening. We're already having people having to move and leave where they are and go someplace else because of climate. And when it happens, it doesn't work out. I mean, people aren't saying, "Oh, great, a bunch of new people are coming. Let's be hospitable and make everything great for them." That's not what's happening. So what we need to do is to find ways that we can allow these migrations without people fighting each other and having wars and killing each other. So I just thought that in case you felt really, really cheerful this morning, I'd talk to you about it and be a real downer. So anyway, that's what I have to say right now. Do you have any questions, Cherie?
Yeah, like I want to go for concluding remarks for today's session and how we can improve policy for climate change.
How we can do what? Could you ask the question again? How we could do?
How we can improve policy
quality
for climate change project
policy. Well, I think that the first thing is we just have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be honest. The scientists are getting better and better at predicting this. What we do is we create a model and we say, from all the information we have, we believe this is what's going to happen in the next 5-10 years, something like that. And then 5 or 10 years happen, and we look at our model and we look at what really happened, and we say to ourselves, well, our model was close here and really close here, but it wasn't very close here. So what do we need to adjust in our model so that our model is more representative of reality? And then a little while goes by again, and we look at our improved model, and there's things that are right and things that are wrong, and we keep improving these models. And we've been doing this for a while, so our models are getting surprisingly good. And so we can know where the sea levels are going to rise the most. We can know where it's going to get so hot that people aren't going to be able to live. We can know we can know these things. And so we have to just say to ourselves, well, if people aren't going to be able to live here, well, and they are going to be able to live there, then we're going to have to figure out how to get the people that that won't have a place to live to have a place to live. And we're going to have to figure out how the people where people come, how to get them to be able to be okay with having new people come and live there with them, because it's just, that's going to have to happen. And it's either going to happen peacefully or it's going to happen violently. And so the main policy is that we need to do is we need to start looking at this as an economic, sociological, psychological problem besides just the scientific problem, and start working towards planning on this inevitable migrations and other problems happening. And so from a policy point of view, I think that that's what we need to do. We need to research people. We need to find out what their objections are. We need to find out how we're going to physically do it. We need to figure out how we're going to feed people. All those things all need to be worked on yesterday. And so that's my concluding remark.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Donald, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Bye.
Bye.